Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar covering the topic of community outreach and engagement. I'm your host, Jay Dong from CCC Partners. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the ongoing support from HUD's Office of Innovation that made this webinar series possible, and also our colleagues at First Pick who have done a wonderful job marketing the series and delivering the 3 previous webinars. Lastly, I'd like to thank you for taking time away from your busy schedule to participate in today's session. A special shout out goes out to the EnVision Centers that we spoke with during the preparation of this webinar. Your feedback was tremendously helpful. Next, I'd like to go over some housekeeping items. During today's webinar, we will be taking 2 live polls to get your feedback in real time via a platform called Mentimeter. You can either access the Mentimeter website either via your cell phone or a separate window on your internet browser. Additional information will be provided on how to access Mentimeter as we progress through the presentation. We'll also ask you to use the chat box function at the bottom right corner of your screen to input your questions, comments, and feedback throughout the presentation and during the Q&A session at the end. If you experience any technical difficulties, please send me a private chat so that I can help you troubleshoot the issue. Next, I'd like to introduce you to our esteemed panelists for today's webinar, Mr. Harry Smith. Harry is a seasoned community organizer and consultant who has 25+ years of experience working with various community-based organizations, resident-led groups, government programs, and private entities. Without further ado, I now turn it over to Harry to kick off the presentation. Harry, please take it away. I will unmute Harry now. Go ahead, Harry.
I think I'm muted. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Hello, everybody. Thanks, Jay, for that introduction. And I want to just echo what you said around connecting with the groups ahead of time. It was really helpful to talk to some of your organizations ahead of time, and it really helped enrich this conversation, hopefully. So we want to start with just looking at some of the goals for today. If you want to switch to the next slide. If we could go to the next slide.
Hold on, Harry. I'm seeing. Yeah, give me 1 second. I'm seeing the. You're not seeing page 2.
Now I see it. I manually did it. Are you?
Yeah, I'm on page 2 on my screen.
Okay, great. So what we are looking at today is to really provide guidance on how to engage the community, increase participation in center programming. We really want to get into a conversation, so we're going to have some interactive opportunities here to explore best practices, what you guys are doing that's working, what you're doing that has been a challenge. And we want to identify some of the challenges that you all are facing with a special attention on the COVID-19 issue, since that is obviously front and center in our minds. Yes, you will receive a copy of the PowerPoint, so you don't need to scratch out notes furiously or anything. We'll get you a copy of that along with all the questions and answers. All right, so the next, we want to go to the agenda. So like I said, we're gonna just kind of do a brief overview of some of the elements of effective outreach and engagement, and then we're going to talk about challenges, specifically then in the context of COVID-19, and we want to have plenty of opportunity for conversation and discussion. So without further ado, we want to jump into the first Mentimeter poll.
All right, if everybody have your cell phone handy, or you can easily just open up a separate window in your internet browser, I will take you to the Mentimeter where we can administer the live poll. On your screen, you should see, go to www.mentimeter.com and use the code 7893 15 and 5, and it will give you the following options to choose from. We'll give folks some time to get to Mentimeter. In the meantime, if you have technical issues accessing the Mentimeter website, please send me a chat, and then I can try my best to troubleshoot it for you. Okay, we see someone jumping in and providing their selection. Great. All right. We'll give another 2 minutes.
I know it's tough to choose from all the challenges. We're trying to get to the top challenges that you're facing.
So I will switch back to our presentation, and as we advance through the presentation, we'll have a chance to discuss these results. Okay. Harriet.
I'm still seeing the Mentimeter poll.
Okay, give me 1 second. How about now, Harriet?
I'm sorry, I'm just seeing the results of the Mentimeter poll. I'm not seeing the next slide. I'm still in.
Give me 1 second as I troubleshoot. Okay, how about now?
No, I'm still seeing it. Apologies, I'm only seeing the what is your biggest challenge in getting people involved.
Okay, give me 1 second. I will try something different to get us back to the presentation. Okay, Harry?
Yes.
Can you see the screen?
Okay. So yes, sorry everybody, we're back in business. So what we want to do is we'll come back to the challenges, and want to jump ahead to just a brief overview of what we're talking about when we talk about effective outreach efforts. So what we're looking at when we talk about outreach, it really describes kind of a broad set of activities that can cover everything from delivery of services to distributing information. In the context of this conversation, we're talking about everything you're doing to promote and expand access to the services that you're offering as part of the EnVision Center initiative. One thing just to point out is that, traditionally people have talked about outreach as kind of the efforts you're doing to promote your work. But as we're going to talk about in a little while in the context of COVID, outreach can also be about direct service delivery, as well as raising awareness. So let's talk about a few examples. So here's a not fully complete list of potential outreach activities. Everything from distribution of flyers and door-to-door door knocking and community events to social media, websites, presentations at resident association meetings, phone trees, open houses. I'm sure everyone has tried some version of these activities in your time working in your organizations and trying to get the word out to communities. These can all be effective in their way. As we're going to talk about now, we really want to get into how do you mix these and target them to the audience that you're trying to reach. So before we do that, I just want to talk briefly about what are some of the benefits of a robust outreach and engagement strategy. And you can feel free to write in the chat box additional comments. I've listed out here a few that I came upon when I was talking to some of you ahead of time, and then just in my own experience. Obviously, you're trying to increase the number of participants receiving the great services that you have to offer. That's kind of a given. But in addition, you're using a good strategic outreach campaign can also expand your collaborations and partnerships, so you're not reinventing the wheel every time you go to promote your programs. It can also incorporate resident voice to make sure both that it's meeting community needs and that there's real buy-in and that the word of mouth is very strong. We're going to talk later about some of the marketing strategies and the power of word of mouth to help get people in the doors. Also, in terms of data collection and evaluation, more and more foundations, government agencies, your own boards of directors are really asking for more impact about not just how many people are getting services, but also what are they getting out of it? What are the benefits of those services? And so, a really good strategy also includes data and evaluation. Are there any other benefits that people see in addition to what we've got listed here? Anything we're missing? Or any questions before we go to the next, before we really start getting into the elements of a successful plan?
Yeah, please use the chat box function if you would like to provide an input or a question.
All right. Well, why don't we keep moving, and there'll be plenty of time to put more comments in as we go. So what are the elements of a successful engagement plan? All of you who are involved in running organizations, running outreach campaigns, you've done a lot of outreach and engagement over the years. And so I don't want to reinvent the wheel or start at too basic a level, but I do want to just start with a few thoughts. And one of them is one of my favorite quotes, which is, "A goal without a plan is just a wish." So in that light, let's jump into it. So first of all, just like you're establishing clear goals and targets for your actual program activities, you also want to establish the same kind of goals and targets for your outreach efforts. So a lot of times organizations spend a lot of time on creating excellent programming, but then when it comes to the outreach, it's a little bit scattershot. It's a little bit kind of like, let's get these flyers out here, or let's get this going. But it's really, really not targeted in the same way that your programming is. And so, we really want to start off establishing clear and measurable goals, really identifying your target communities, knowing who your audience is, and setting targets as much as possible so that you know whether you've been successful. The third thing is a lot of groups do needs assessments, which are really important. In my previous organization, Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative in Boston, we really focused a lot on asset assessments. And so not just looking at what are the issues or problems in the community, but also looking at what are the resources, who are the allies that you have in your community. And for example, religious institutions, schools, neighborhood groups, et cetera. And so that you've got a really balanced approach. You're looking at the challenges and issues, of which we know there are many, but also looking at what are the assets that you have at your disposal. So the fourth thing is really tailoring your plan to specific communities. Like I said, we talked earlier, there's a list of many different forms of outreach that you could undertake. And the key is really knowing what is the best way to connect with different community members. What are the issues, what are the best ways that people like to receive information in your communities? One of the ways you find that out is you really work with key stakeholders, key opinion shapers in the neighborhoods, in the community to try to understand what makes the most sense. Is it one-on-one contact? Is it showing up at events? Is it social media, et cetera? What you'll find, obviously, is that it's probably some combination of all of these efforts, but you really want to be able to tailor it so you're not wasting the precious time that you have, limited capacity for outreach. What I mentioned before, evaluation, just really tracking not only participation rates and number of families reached, but also what are the qualitative impacts of your program and being able to demonstrate that impact. And then finally, something that should be done, on the front end is really continuing to figure out a way to seek community input into the implementation planning of your campaigns. That includes both getting feedback as part of your program planning. So as you're running your programs, finding ways to ask questions of the participants who are there about how they found out about the program, how they would suggest getting the word out, et cetera, taking a little bit of time there. And then also following up with residents. A lot of residents, especially in public housing and other subsidized housing, have been subjected to many polls and door knocking and surveys, and they never find out what happens to that information. So really following up with them to let them know that the outreach that you did to them and their input really has an impact on how you shaped your programs. So those are some of the basic elements, and we want to kind of stop there and ask you a basic poll. So Jay?
Yes, so once you proceed back to the Mentimeter page, I will go ahead and share that screen again to take us back there.
So we want to just know, do you have a clear outreach and engagement plan for the programs that you operate? Yes, no, or maybe to some extent. if you can't access it, you could put it in the chat. If for some reason.
Yeah, I see. For some reason, I can't put it on the share screen at this current moment. Give me 1 second to go back here. I apologize for the technical difficulty. Okay. I think folks have completed in terms of share the poll. So we'll go back to the next page in the presentation. And let me try to share my screen. Okay. I will just go ahead and read it out since we can't go back to the Mentimeter screen where we can share for everyone to see. So four of the attendees indicated that they, to a certain extent, that they have a outreach and engagement plan in place. One of them indicated no, and the other one indicated yes. So 1 for yes, 1 for no, and 4 for to an extent. Harry?
Yes. So if you want to jump to the next question here, which is getting back to the challenges that people had involved. We want to come back to the vote results for that.
Right. So let me go back to that page.
So there were a number of possible.
Right. Once again, due to the technical issues, we can't show you the live results. So I'll go ahead and read them out. We had the highest response was 4 participants indicated that their biggest challenge is in their center participants' work/school schedules. 1 indicated lack of childcare as the biggest challenge. 1 indicated language and cultural barriers as the biggest challenge, and 2 indicated transportation issues as their biggest challenge, and 1 indicated public safety concerns as their biggest challenge. We didn't have any response for lack of staffing and funding for outreach, and lack of outreach plan was 0 as well, and we had 0 for others in terms of biggest challenge. So most folks indicated that, participants' work/school schedule was their biggest challenge.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's a common issue in terms of trying to both reach out to participants, but also in terms of providing the services and programming at the time when the participants are able to take advantage of it, especially families or residents who are either working multiple jobs or are working and also in an education program, for example, or their children trying to juggle all of those activities. I want to jump ahead to what is obviously one of the biggest challenges that we're all facing right now, which is the pandemic and how that has kind of changed your original priorities and programming over this past year. I don't think anybody looking back, at September of 2019 had in their work plan the kinds of direct services or triage work that most of you are currently doing. I didn't get a chance to talk to all of you, but the groups that I did talk to, you can see some of the things that they've really had to move to. And I'd love it if you, in the chat, if people could put in either examples of direct services that they're providing now or other things you don't see up here. What we're seeing around addressing immediate needs is almost every group is doing some kind of food distribution, dealing with food insecurity and connecting low-income families to healthy food. Also medicine, getting folks access to medicine, healthy medicine, or telemedicine as well. Then there's the issue of the digital divide, which has been with us for a long time, but has really been exacerbated by this crisis. And so a lot of groups have been working on helping families get laptops or Chromebooks, or helping deal with internet access and Wi-Fi, so that low-income families can have the same kind of opportunities as families with more resources. Are there other examples of direct services that you all have been providing that may not have been exactly in your job description last year? If you want to put them in the chat. So Alexander, creating a YouTube channel to help give extra help to students on their current schoolwork. That's one way to get to everybody. That's a great idea. Other examples, other things that folks are doing that have altered your work in the last year, in the last 6 months, say? One of the key questions that came up in our preparation for this, in conversations with some of the EnVision centers, is, how are you using direct services to encourage participation in your overall programming? And the hope is obviously that there will be the new normal, and that there will be the opportunity to implement the programming the holistic kind of programming that you offer. But in the meantime, for example, in the food distribution side, I've seen groups in the area in Boston who are distributing food, but not getting names of any families, not getting contact information. It's just it's getting distributed out there, but without any kind of follow-up. And a number of the groups I talked to in EnVision Center are doing a good job of capturing that contact information, but also bringing materials and information about your other programming, so that the connection is not just around food distribution, but rather, using that as the entry point to get others to get them to learn more about your programming. And the same can be said around the work with families, the work getting laptops or Chromebooks or connecting with the schools. You should always be thinking, how are you capturing this information, and how are you preparing for the day when your original programming is going to be going forward. So not to lose some of those key opportunities. Other questions or thoughts? So say Phoenix Housing is coordinating on-site COVID testing for residents in public housing to eliminate transportation barriers, and then also connecting people to reminders about completing the census. So that's a perfect example of a way that you're doing direct services to families, but also getting multiple bangs for the buck there, and not just doing one thing, but having multiple goals in your outreach efforts. Other ideas, other questions or examples of ways that you're connecting direct services to participation in your other programming?
Hey, Harry, I see Hilda responded by saying that they are doing virtual events via Facebook Live and Zoom. So live stream is another great way to capture your audience's attention and communicate with them, in real time via social media.
Great idea. No, it's I think that especially for families with younger kids or kids who know how to who are adept in social media, and it's a great way to connect directly with those families. So we'll have some more time in the Q&A. We want to get to kind of the last part of our presentation and then open it up more. So presented examples of a cohesive engagement plan. I want to just go over a few keys to really sustaining a successful initiative. And a mentor of mine, when I was a young community organizer, told me that a picture is worth 1,000 words and a personal contact is worth 100 flyers. So let's get into that. First of all, we said it a little bit before, but you want to make sure that you really know your audience, that you are communicating and providing services in a culturally sensitive way. That includes hiring staff from the target communities or who have the language and other skills to reach those constituencies. The other piece that comes up a lot is just trying to keep it simple. Sometimes the speech can be very bureaucratic or very sort of inside speech and not kind of really giving people the information that they need to know. And so keeping it simple, using photos and graphics, creating materials that really emphasize how people are going to benefit from these programs is key. So next is kind of getting back to the quote, the need to mix old school and new school methodology. I come out of a little bit of the old school and I've had to learn a lot of the new school, but I still believe the saying that, one personal conversation is worth 100 flyers. You think about your own neighborhood or your own community and the reasons why you might go to an event or a community meeting or a neighborhood meeting. It's very rare that it's because somebody just put a flyer on your doorstep. It's more often that you're talking to a neighbor or somebody that you trust and they say, you have to come to this. And so that kind of one-on-one conversation, I think, is just as important as getting a lot of emails out or social media posts. And then looking forward to the day when you can go back to the grocery stores, laundromats, beauty salons, et cetera, and really meet people where they're at. Not just handing out flyers, but having outreach staff who are able to find out where are people gathering, where do families in the community get together, and making sure your information is out there. Along with that is, old marketing technique of the rule of 7, which really gets at the concept of saturation marketing, and you see this a lot in political campaigns. But you also see it in marketing. For example, when you decide you're thinking about what movie to go to, the research shows that maybe you'll see a ad for a movie on a bus coming by, and then you'll see a billboard, and then you might see a movie trailer at a different movie you went to. You might see an ad on TV, and by the time somebody says, hey, have you seen the new Avengers movie, it clicks in your head that that's what you want to do. Well, that is an example of saturation marketing, and a lot of nonprofit community groups don't want to bug people. They don't want to, inundate people with too much information, and so they kind of they're like, well, I sent out a flyer and nobody came, or I made a couple phone calls. And I think going back to the original list of outreach methods, you don't want to hit them with 7 flyers back to back to back, but you do want to figure out creative ways to reach residents in multiple ways in order for them to really have it sink in. With all the competing noise out there in the world, it takes a lot to get through. And the last two that I'll say, one is really building into your outreach plan, taking the time to build the kind of long-term relationships with community partners that are going to make your efforts successful in the long run. Think about a phone call you get at your desk and somebody says, hi, I need you to drop everything and spread the word about this event. You're less likely to do that if you have no relationship with the person. But if someone calls you and says, hey, Harry, I really, I know we ask a lot, but, we really need to get some people in the seats for this event or for this program, you're more likely to take some time, and you're more likely to then follow back up with them and say, hey, well, I need help as well. So those kind of relationships, especially in public housing and subsidized housing, building relationships with resident leaders, property managers, other service providers is key. And finally, I mentioned before the need for positive word of mouth. It's obviously based on quality programming, so you have to make sure your program is of high quality. But assuming that it is, and from what I've talked to a number of you, it sounds like it's amazing work you all are doing. The best way to get the word out is through word of mouth, and really seeking out kind of informal leaders in the neighborhood or gatekeepers. They don't necessarily have the title, but they're the people that everyone goes to get their advice or information. And that could be at the barber shop or at the church or in a neighborhood association. Really seeking them out and building those relationships and making sure they understand the impact of your program. And as part of that, really embracing potential changes to your program as you go forward based on feedback. So if the residents are continuing telling you that your programming is not quite hitting their needs, it's a good time to step back and say, well, how can we do this slightly differently? And then finally, just quickly I know a lot of your organizations are connected with either working as part of the housing authority or working with public housing residents. And I've worked a lot in public housing in Boston, and there are just a few, ideas or suggestions around specific outreach to public housing residents. And again, the importance of building relationships with resident leaders. In larger buildings, looking at a floor captain model where you can get residents themselves, whether you explore a stipend model where floor captains or block captains would get a stipend to help take more leadership in getting the word out. When we have community events again, being a really constant present at those events in public housing means a lot. I know a lot of times our public housing residents are kind of looking at groups that come in only when they need them, but not when they really want to, not when the public housing groups need the community. And so, really being there, not just when you're promoting something, but to support them. So with that being said, I want to conclude the presentation piece and get into more of a conversation about anything you've heard today, about the challenges, about things that you guys are doing in your communities to address these challenges, or other specifics you have.
And folks, if you would like to use the audio function, just let me know in the chat box, and I can unmute you individually, so that way we can minimize the interruption from the background noise that others may have, so that we wouldn't have to unmute everyone at once. And feel free to use the chat box to let us know if you would like to share some tips and best practices that you found helpful during your engagement engagement campaign to the community.
One of the questions that came up in talking with Eleni at Phoenix was the question about when are we ever going back to normal, and what would it look like to, what's this kind of next year going to look like? And I wanted curious about if others have been grappling with that question of assuming COVID is not is going to be with us for a while, and this kind of new social distancing measures. How do you bring back holistic services in this new normal? I see, Alexander, he's in contact with a local business that needed to hire people, put it on the Facebook page, and 6 people ended up getting up jobs. That's great. That's a great example.
Yeah, and then Gretchen mentioned that the challenges are very real. They met with the mayor last week to discuss grant opportunities and vouchers for transportation for their residents and citizens. They're in the process of developing a partnership to create transportation opportunities for families seeking assistance from the EnVision Center. So yes, transportation is definitely a huge challenge for a lot of the residents, without their own vehicle, and perhaps there's hesitation in terms of safety issues around accessing public transportation. So this is definitely a challenging time for all of us to stay ahead and be innovative and creative in our approach to dealing with these issues.
No, that's a great point around the transportation piece, and I think especially in the kind of public health situation we're in, it's made it even more challenging. So that kind of advocacy work is key. Any other examples or other questions around how people are adjusting to the new normal here? So I think that, in terms of the challenges that, you guys voted on, and, obviously we just talked about transportation and needing to address that. I think the people who voted on, who said that the participants' work and school schedules, can you elaborate a little more on that? If that is, that has to do with when you're able, when you're able to try to reach them, or is that more about their not being able to participate in the programming because of their schedules? If it'd be helpful just to elaborate a little on what you mean. And like Jay said, if you want to get unmuted and talk or ask a question. I see your question, Alexander. I'll get to that in 1 second. Any thoughts, any other thoughts on just on the schedule conversation? Because that is definitely something out of your control. So how are you adapting to that? While everyone's mulling that over, I'll look at Alexander's question, which is, how is the most effective way to find what a community needs? Surveys, questionnaires, et cetera. And again, people should feel free to jump in. For me, it kind of goes back to the kind of old school, new school approach. I think the best way to find out what a community needs is to ask them. And once you start from there, you decide, okay, what is the best way to get information from the neighborhood and from the community? For some people, that is a survey and a questionnaire. I think that's kind of a good baseline tool, and I think it's definitely useful and should be used. A lot of times you have to get really creative now with surveys and questionnaires. So you could end up, again, if let's say you're doing a food distribution program or another kind of on-site COVID testing or other things, figuring out a way to implement those surveys right there, and also potentially having some incentives. So something as simple as saying, fill out the survey and you can be entered in a drawing to get a gift card or something. People love that. Even if it's a $25 gift card, you'd be surprised that someone might take a little bit more time to fill out questions. And then making sure the questionnaires are short and to the point. A lot of groups kind of get carried away once they say, oh, if we're going to ask, we might as well ask this, this, and this. And you end up having 35 questions and no one wants to answer it. And so, being concise. But I also think, conversation about social media, how do you get feedback on social media? How do you get feedback more face-to-face with groups, or, phone calling or other ways to try to find out? But you're asking the right question. And I think the start is just continue to find different creative ways to ask the community as you're planning your programming and outreach.
Hey, Harry, I'd like to add something to that question. Just from my years of being in the affordable housing industry and working in the community directly, I've come across some best practices, and one of them has to do, is really about having a small focus group with the residents and community members on a regular basis. You can do it quarterly or bi-monthly, and by organizing and empowering resident or community leaders, and then ask each one of them to bring another guest to each of the sessions, you can really have a rich and insightful conversation that are qualitative in nature, and to be able to capture a lot of the nuance, otherwise you wouldn't be able to access or be able to capture through surveys or online polls or just written assessments. So I think having that group dialogue is crucial to getting to understanding the needs of your community.
Thanks, Jay. That's really helpful. Other thoughts on most effective ways to find out what the community needs, especially in the times that we're in? How are you reaching out and talking to families? I also want to check in on time, Jay, just see how we're.
Yeah, we have about 8 minutes left.
Okay.
Yep. And I think we can go to the comment that Hilda provided. And she stated that their nonprofit partner is starting a hybrid approach, no more than 10 participants on site, and the rest are, interacted with virtually. And she thinks that having a virtual availability of events after all of all this is over is a good idea for those who can't make it to the training workshops. So what she's saying, beyond even, just this challenging period that we're living in, having, extending that virtual access opportunity and an option for others who can't access, center events in real time in person is also a good idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think it's not enough to, some colleagues of mine kind of throw up their hands and say that the digital divide is real, and our communities just can't compete or aren't going to be able to benefit from a lot of this online, virtual, Zoom, et cetera, communications. But we have to find a way. I know a group in Providence, Rhode Island, that has got a sponsor to come in and create a mesh network in the community, in very low-income community that they're working in, to try to provide free internet access to all the residents living in that part of the neighborhood. And those kind of things, it's not enough to just say there's a digital divide. We all have to get very creative on how to bridge it. I'm seeing Gretchen here. So great, Gretchen is still making personal contacts. Excellent, I'm happy to hear that. It means you've got to be outside. I see, looking through their screen door, but at least you get to see somebody. And I think that is a huge benefit. And even if it means you're out on the porch and you're talking from 6 feet away, but people still understand that you're trying to meet their needs. So that I think this is going to be with us. I think figuring out ways to have direct interaction that isn't just social media, that isn't just sending out flyers, but of course, obviously staying safe. And I agree. I think people really appreciate the effort that it takes to continue the kind of one-on-one dialogue. And people are kind of lonely in their house. It's amazing the phone banking rates. I know for political campaigns, and the participation rates are going way up because more people are in their house, more people are looking for someone to talk to sometimes, and so you'd be surprised. I think yeah, following what Gretchen's saying, to not give up on going door to door, but just being very, very safe about it.
I got another comment coming from Marla. She's indicating that they've been doing virtual events that are separate to target each segment of the target population. So children and adults, separate events, but are happening simultaneously. That can also improve engagement. That's a great point.
So you have an event targeted at the parents, but you've also got an activities for the kids as part of that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that's what. Yep. She said yes.
That's great. No, I think that the child care issue, the scheduling issues are real, and if you can figure out ways to provide meaningful opportunities and programming for the children, parents are going to be more likely to get involved, and that's the same anytime, not just during COVID-19, but just in general.
Yeah, and this just reminds me of how we look into the particularly vulnerable segment of the target population. Senior citizens are experiencing increasing social isolation during this tough times. So virtual programming or phone programming. There are free programs out there such as Senior Centers Without Walls, where they can, dial in the phone and play bingo with folks via the phone, or virtual programs that they can attend, or any other programs that are offered through the center virtually that they can take advantage of. That's going to be really crucial to help them address this social isolation challenge that they're facing.
So I know we're a couple minutes out. Anyone have any other last minute questions or comments as we move on to next steps? Jay, do you want to just explain what kind of how it'll work in terms of getting the presentation and notes out to people?
Yes. So I'd like to thank everyone for participating in today's webinar again. Following the webinar, we'll send out a email which will contain a PDF copy of the slide deck that you're seeing today, and also accompanying that slide, the slide deck will be a fact sheet, just capturing all the information at a very high level. And additionally, the email will capture the questions, comments you posed, and the answer provided during the live delivery of the webinar. And then we encourage you to reply to the email message if you need further clarification on what was covered today, or have any additional questions and comments. And thank you again. And this will conclude today's webinar. And we will look forward to seeing you at the next session, where we'll be covering the topic of financial literacy. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all very much.